And I'm joined by my good friend, Mr. Jack Hutchinson. How you keeping, mate?
I am all the better for seeing you, Lee. How you doing, man?
Yeah, good, man. Long time no see. Glad you're keeping well, buddy.
Yeah, it's good to see you. Yeah, I'm all right. I'm in my spare room at the moment, which was the kind of room that I used as my studio during lockdown. So it's quite nice to be in here and not be surrounded with loads of cables and different things that were just like making it incapable to actually move around it. But yeah, it's really nice to see you.
Yeah, you too, man. So, as we were talking about just before we start press record, a couple weeks' time, September the 2nd, I believe, you're releasing your brand new EP, What Doesn't Kill You. Already, I'm seeing great reviews for this, mate. You're already getting a really positive response from it for what I've seen.
Yeah, all those reviews are from my mum. Actually, she's been putting them out on the internet under a
Various
pseudonym.
A-listers.
But she does like it actually, and it's quite a nice EP that I think is it's quite a nice culmination to the Hammer Falls project. So my album that came out earlier on this year. Yeah, it's a nice little thing. I dropped off all the physical copies up at I Saw Merch this morning, so I've done this big round trip to Nottingham with all these CDs in the back of the van. So yeah, hopefully people dig it and they get a lot of enjoyment out of it.
You got some great packages coming. So you were just saying you dropped them off at I Saw Merch. I was looking at them earlier because I've just put my order in. So you got some great packages going along with the EP, mate. You got your ultimate packages there. You got pretty much everything and everything anyone would want with it. With regards to t-shirts and signed bits and ultimate bundles. You not got any vinyl there, have you? You got anything?
No, we
No.
decided not to do this on vinyl, mainly because I'd already done a vinyl earlier on this year, and the Hammer Falls was kind of quite a special thing. But also, the reality of getting it produced on vinyl was that it was going to be quite a long wait. It would have had to we would have had to push the release date back into next year, and it's very expensive. And I just thought, I wanted to do something a little bit different to what I'd done before, and I'd never done a DVD. So the idea was to do this sort of dual disc package with the EP on one disc and then this DVD on the other. And I'd really got into watching the Rolling Stones from the Vaults packages in lockdown. I bought a load of them off eBay,
Oh, nice.
and they're basically in identical casing to how my EP comes.
Oh, wicked.
And same thing with them, where you get a CD with the music, and then the DVD is the concert. And obviously, this isn't a live concert, but it's got all the music videos that I've made over the last couple of years, and it's got some behind the scenes footage of me and the band trying to strangle each other in the studio, that kind of stuff. So I think it looks pretty cool. Yeah.
That's good, man. Well, I remember last time we were chatting, you were talking about that you had something coming up with Kevin Shirley that you just sort of started talking to him about, and obviously it's culminated in this EP, which is incredible that you've got Kevin Shirley. I mean, he's one of my favorite producers. So
Yeah, man. I mean, obviously, Kevin Shirley for me, I think one of the first records I ever bought was probably By Your Side by the Black Crows, which he worked on, and he did the Live at the Greek Black Crows Jimmy Page album. So his name was associated with, this band that I just fell in love with. And then kind of, I guess it was around maybe 2002, 2003, I got into sort of Maiden, and then obviously Kevin was involved at that stage with Maiden. And so, almost 20 years later, to be able to work with somebody who worked with those bands and later on Joe Bonamassa, people that I really respect, it's just incredible. He put this thing out on Instagram, which was, I can't remember the exact sequence of events, but it was to do with he couldn't fly out to America or something, and he got 4 weeks spare, and he was looking to do not production, mixing on independent artists' music.
that's really cool that he did that though with his time.
And yeah, just had to send him I think I sent him a Dropbox link of the Hammer Falls track, and he messaged me back and said he liked it. And then he was originally just going to do that song, so it's one song, and then I asked him if he could do another two, so then it turned into three. And then I thought, well, if I do another one, then I've got a 4-track EP there. But I thought, let's try and write a brand new song. And so there's a brand new song on there called Days of Thunder, which was written really quickly and recorded really quickly. And it was a case of like bashing it over to Kevin in Australia, and then him sending the mix through probably 2 or 3 days later.
Oh,
And yeah, super pleased with it. But yeah, it's a real honour to have worked with him.
no, I bet, man. I mean, like growing up, me, for me, he will always be associated with one of my favorite Aerosmith albums, Nine Lives. Him and doing that, that was the, you
Yeah,
know,
he did Nine Lives, didn't he? He did. I tell you what, Nine Lives. I reckon I deafened myself buying that record because I listened to Nine Lives over and over again, and I used to jam along with it because it got "Falling in Love Is Hard on the Knees," right? And Pink's on there, isn't it? I
yeah,
think I had the deluxe version that had "Don't Want to Miss a Thing"
song
added
at
on
the
at the
end,
end.
yeah.
I remember trying to sing along with that when I was trying to learn how to be a vocalist, and my Auntie Jane was staying over for the week, and she came into my bedroom and asked if I was okay. And I said, "What do you mean?" And she said, "It sounded like you're screaming." And I said, "Well, I'm singing along with Aerosmith." And she said,
Yeah,
"Oh, I better leave you to it then."
yeah. I'm trying to imitate Steven Tyler here. I'm going to go a bit high pitch.
Yeah, it was. I wasn't really coming across as Steven Tyler. It was more sort of Steven Tyler having stood on a pin. It was pretty bad. But
Mate,
thankfully, I've improved since then, I think.
well, you know me, mate. I love Aerosmith. They're one of my favorite bands, and I've been at several concerts where people have gone for that note that shouldn't. So I don't think you're the only one there, mate.
Yeah, the bridge bit in the middle where it sort of goes super high.
Uh,
Thankfully, I've worked with some great producers over the years that have sort of instructed me what keys I should be singing in, and I've worked out that "Don't Want to Miss a Thing" key ain't my key. So I'll stick to the Elmore James "Shake Your Money Maker" key instead.
to be fair, there's not many people that can pull off that key. To be fair,
Well, Steven Tyler, I'm amazed he can still do it when he
oh, he's
can do
74 years
that.
old. And he's still doing it.
Yeah,
It's crazy.
yeah, absolutely, man.
Yeah, and when you told me obviously that you were on Kevin Shirley, I was pretty excited to hear the results because, like yourself, for the first gig I ever went to was Aerosmith, but like my dad took me to see that was on the Nine Lives tour at Wembley.
Wow.
Black Crows were supporting, and that's when I fell in love with the Black Crows. I've heard one or two tracks floating around the thing, but seeing them live, that's what made me fall in love with the Crows.
Was that the show that Lenny Kravitz played at as well?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's
Didn't he sit in with the Crows or something, or maybe they sat in with him or something like that? But I remember seeing it being reported in like it would have been NME, I suppose, at that, or Melody Maker that I used to buy, and thinking, God, I really wish I'd got to go to that concert.
yeah, that was my
Yeah,
first gig.
really.
Yeah,
Well, that's a pretty cool first gig. My first gig was Page and Plant though, so that was cool as
that's
well.
pretty freaking cool to be fair.
Yeah, and I actually I think that's what did my hearing when I was a teenager. That gig when
Yeah.
they came out and did rock and roll, and I just don't think I ever heard things quite the same ever again.
Going back to yourself though, buddy, you were talking about tours and everything. You like you say, you're going on the road, starting off in October into November, taking quite a few dates in across on this one.
Yeah, man, we're doing a tour in October, November, December. We're doing 12 dates, which is slightly less than the mammoth 25 date tour I did at the end of last year into this year, which I think by the end of it completely burnt us out. Actually, I've never done a tour as long as that, and it was good, but I think by the end of it, I was thinking about. I always make Almost Famous references in interviews, but the end of Almost Famous where the kid just like drops on his bed and
Yeah.
he's just shattered. I think we all felt a little bit like that. But yeah, we're going out later on in the year, doing a lot of venues I've never played before. So the aim with this tour was, you know what it's like when you put a tour out and everybody's like, "Oh, how come you're not playing the pub down the road from
Yeah.
me?"
I
And
know you're playing this pub that one end of the street. How come you're not playing the other end of the street?
absolutely. So I actually tried to pay attention to what people said earlier on this year and started booking gigs in places like Milton Keynes is somewhere I've never played before. Winchester, Swansea. I've never played in Swansea before. So there's quite a few of them. Thunderbolt in Bristol as well. So there's an element of risk with that in that, I've played a lot of the same venues for maybe 3 or 4 years. Like we've always had a show in Bedford, for instance. Like we've always done Esquires, and I've got a good following there. But it would be easy to just keep going back to the same places. So we'll see how it turns out. But I'm really excited about it, and I've had a bit of a break over summer, which I've not really done that much over the years. But I think it's reached the point now where I'm just sort of gagging to get back out, and we've got tour rehearsals starting in early September, so I'm looking forward to just getting in and getting the set sort of sorted for it.
Oh, nice. I mean, the closest one you got to us, I think, is Norwich at the Brickies. So we're coming down to that.
Yeah, man, that's a cool venue. I think they're possibly changing owners or something later on this
They
year.
are, yeah, yeah. They put up something earlier this year saying that that we was letting it go. I'm just trying to think.
It's nothing to do with me, by the way. They didn't decide to stop because of me. But yeah, we played there actually on the last tour, but I've not really played in Norwich. So the idea was to kind of go back to that place and sort of build on what we did last year. But I think, you know, it's cool to be out and doing shows again. I'm still kind of amazed that we're doing it after that break that was, you know,
Yeah,
forced upon everyone due to COVID. I think we should still be really excited about being able to see live bands.
definitely.
So yeah, it should be good.
You got White Raven down in Norwich supporting you, haven't you?
I have, yeah, they're a great band. And one of the things that I always try to do with tours is um I've never understood this thing where bands get terrible support acts where they
Right.
basically want to make themselves look better than they are. It's like, well, just be good.
Yeah,
You bring your A game. But also, I like watching the support bands,
yeah.
and you know, I did that on the last tour where we had some great acts come out with us, and we've got Firekind back on a couple of dates. They're really cool guys. You know, the most handsome chaps in rock. Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing those guys, and it gets you. I've always liked this idea, right, of getting in the vibe for the show, and that watching the support band does help. I was in America a couple of months back, and I went to see Gilby Clarke and
Nice.
House of Blues in Anaheim, and he was out there watching the opening act. So he was just like chilling out, like, you know, 3 feet away from me at the bar, which was really cool. And I thought actually I had a lot of respect for Gilby Clarke already, but I thought, you know, kudos to this guy for supporting the support act.
Yeah, that is cool.
So yeah, it's going to be good.
Yeah, you touched upon it though. I was going to ask you how were the dates out in the States? So you did tour a couple recently, mate.
Sorry, that sounded like I was just trying to segue into, you know, I went to America to play some shows, man. But I did. I went to America to play some gigs. It's funny that you mention it, Lee. But yeah, it was really good.
I
Yeah,
don't know what queued me up to mention it, mate. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was cool. I was playing at NAMM, which is this
Oh, cool.
big festival, like it's a big convention basically in Anaheim, where it's, you know, lots of the new gear that's going to be kind of on sale by these massive companies over the next 12 months is sort of showcased, and then they have musical performances over the weekend. So I did solo acoustic stuff. I think in retrospect, I don't know whether I made the right decision in terms of the set list that I did. I basically went for all my heavy songs
All right.
and did them acoustically, but people seem to dig it. One person did say they didn't understand what I was talking about. They didn't understand my accent, which I thought was either incredibly rude or incredibly funny. But I'm supposed to be going back to America in April next year, which would be really cool.
Oh, cool.
Doing some shows outside of NAMM in Los Angeles, so I'm really excited about that.
Is that going to be more acoustic stuff again, or is that going to be with?
I don't know yet, actually. I mean, it depends on what the budget is. But you know, I do really enjoy playing acoustic. You know, I've done a lot of electric shows over the last 2 or 3 years, and anybody that followed me in the early part of my career, that's all I did. I just did acoustic gigs really when I became a solo artist.
Yeah, I mean,
And
the first few times I saw you was purely acoustic.
you know, it's cool, man. You can play songs in a more stripped back way, and it showcases actually how you wrote them. I write all my songs pretty much on acoustic. Very quickly segue into playing the Les Paul, playing really loud, but I use the acoustic to focus on the melodies and getting the vocal hooks right.
Yeah.
And I always think that if it sounds good on acoustic, you've probably got a decent tune. At which point I push the Marshall stack into my living room and then start doing the proper demos. But yeah, we'll see. I'd like to do an acoustic tour actually next year, maybe just a short one. I've not done anything like that for a while, so we'll see. But America it felt like a big thing to go to America for me, and I loved it. It was a lot of fun.
Oh, nice one, man. So with the tour in the UK in October, November, is that the same band still with Laz and Felipe?
No, we had this massive falling out, and they stormed off. I'm only joking. No, it's with a new band actually. I've got
Right.
Phil Wilson on drums, who used to be Lawrence Jones's drummer.
Yeah.
and Charlie Rachel Kay's joining on bass, and people will possibly know her from Ashley Sherlock Band.
Oh, okay, yeah,
So, I'm really excited about playing with those two, and it's, you know, with Laz and Felipe, it's not like we've had this big bust up and that's the end of our time together. I think we'll play again, hopefully at some point in the future. But they've just got different projects that they're working on. Felipe's really kind of working out of central London. He's playing in a few blues bands around Soho, and it's a different sort of thing touring. You know, I think he's in a position now where he can roll out of bed and play a gig downstairs in the pub. He lives above a venue in Soho, so he can kind of plays in the house band there. And so, you know, why would he want to travel around, traipsing around in a stinking van with me for 6 weeks when he can do that? And Laz is, I think Laz is working on some really heavy kind of music and that kind of thing, which I think if Laz could choose, he'd really like to be in Gajira. So I'm looking forward to hearing what he builds and releases. But yeah, for me, I think I'm excited about playing with some new musicians that will perhaps bring something quite different to my live performance. And you know, perhaps revisiting some of the stuff that I was possibly playing a few years ago. It's the 5th anniversary of my first solo album, so I'm going to be doing some stuff from that. But yeah, I mean, it's all good. I mean, I think music needs to evolve, and if you get stuck in the same thing, you know, me and the guys, Laz and Felipe, we played a lot of the same songs actually over the last 2 or 3 years. If people came to our gigs, we always played War Pigs. We always did the kind of a sort of set list, and then we added the new songs from the Hammer Falls in. But what I'm excited about with the new tour is, you know, it's kind of like the slate is clean. Let's go out and do some different stuff. So yeah, it'll be fun. But
So
we still might do War Pigs. We'll see.
have you got anything from the back catalogue then that you've got in mind to play that you might not have played in a couple of years then, mate? Or are you just seeing how rehearsals go in next month?
Yeah, there's a few tracks actually off my very first album, which I did with a band called the Boom Boom Brotherhood, that I haven't played for like maybe 4 years, 5 years. And the very first tour that Laz and Felipe did with me was the point where actually all that stuff kind of stopped getting played, because they joined really short notice, and we played a tour in Spain.
Yeah,
So actually the bulk of the tour was like blues, traditional blues stuff, because there wasn't enough time to teach them all the originals and run through it. So all the Boom Boom Brotherhood stuff kind of got scrapped. There was a single called Love Is Gonna Bring You Home, which I used to do, which was really great, sort of AC/DC type tune. So I might put that back in, and I might put some RHR stuff back in. I've not done any RHR things for a little while, and they're great tunes that perhaps have sort of got lost in the sea of releases over the last couple of years. So yeah, I'm not going to do anything off the second RHR album, which is the sort of 70-minute instrumental record.
Yeah.
I'm not going to dare to touch that stuff. But yeah, it's so people coming out to the shows will get a different show to what they got on the 25-date mammoth trek from last year.
But people will want a different show, you know what I mean? There's nothing worse than you go see a band and they keep doing the same set.
Absolutely, man. We talked about the Crows earlier on. Like, the reason I always used to like going and see the Black Crows, and I go and see them on multiple dates on the same tour, because they used to play completely different set lists. I remember seeing them at Shepherd's Bush Empire back when they got back together in about 2006. And I think the first night they started with No Speak, No Slave, which is one of my favorite tracks of theirs. Then the second night, I think they came out and started with Don't Do It, which is I think Otis Redding did that originally, but then the version I kind of was familiar with was the band's version from The Last Waltz. And it's just like, this is great. So you don't know quite what you're getting. I mean, I think I enjoyed the first night more because they actually played more songs. The second night was like, 27-minute version of Wiser Time that was just like, oh man, does anyone want a drink? So yeah.
But I say, man, yeah, people want different things out of every time you see someone. Because I remember, it's probably not fair for me to say the band, but I'm going to. I can edit it out. But I want to go see Buckcherry twice in like two separate tours, and they'd done an album in promotion of their Confessions record, which is a great record, and I really enjoyed the album. So going to see them live on that tour, I was like, brilliant. There's out of the 12 tracks, there's at least 8 that I definitely want to hear them do live and whatever. And they did one off the new album, and the rest of the set was pretty much the same set we saw them doing sort of 18 months prior. And it was just like, well, if you're promoting the album, play, showcase it.
I think it's tricky, isn't it? Because if you've got a big following that like particular music, they like particular songs that you put out, you know,
Oh, an easy
I'm very fortunate. I've never had any hits, so it doesn't really make any difference. But I mean, there's certain songs that I always include, which is, "I Will Follow You," which is the song that I wrote about my dad. Like, the plan was to never play that live because I thought if I start playing it, I'm going to end up in tears. But I've ended up playing it at most shows since, so that will definitely be in there. And songs like "Deal with the Devil," which I've done at a lot of shows, that'll be in there. But there's some stuff that I've not done for bloody ages, like. There's a song of mine called Rattlesnake Woman that I used to love playing because it was like this bit where we segued into Kashmir in the middle and did the actually that was the bit where everyone went and said, "Oh, does anyone want a beer?" It's a 10-minute jam in the middle. But I just want to do some different stuff, and I'm gonna play some new material as well. I've been writing some stuff over the summer that I always think it's interesting when bands don't play new songs because they're like, it's gonna get leaked, man. Like, who cares? Like, it's not like your Led Zeppelin or Oasis in 1995. Nobody cares. Just play them. And so what I try to do is play new songs, and then if people do that where their eyes are glazing over, you think actually maybe this needs a little bit of work. But I've been doing some songwriting with Josiah Manning from Chris Barris Band, and those tracks are sounding really good. So I might throw in some of them as well.
He's a great writer, Josiah.
Yeah, man, and he's got the most incredible beard in rock. I think he's. In fact, I might try and employ Josiah for all of my press shots for the next album because he's so much better looking than me. No, I mean, but he's just great. He's a really nice chap to hang out with. I think we're on the same wavelength, and his work with Chris is phenomenal. He's a brilliant producer, brilliant mixer, and I've got a lot of respect for the guy. I've got a lot of respect for Chris, to be honest. I mean, Chris, when we supported him maybe 3 or 4 years ago now, and it was just an incredible tour, and I learned a lot from Chris Barris on that tour. So it's been fun to go down to Plymouth and do some recording and songwriting with him. So we'll see. Maybe I'll throw in some of that stuff. It's quite rocky and quite energetic. And after I finished The Hammer Falls, I was like, right, next album's going to be like Neil Young used to do, right? He'd put out the Crazy Horse Heavy Rock album, and then the next album would be like Harvest, or the acoustic stuff. And then all the stuff I've written since has been really heavy. So we'll see.
You'll get around to an acoustic one eventually, mate.
Yeah, I'm hoping that Phil can keep pace like Felipe, because I used to have to inject Felipe with Red Bull before we played shows to make sure he didn't lose his tempos halfway through.
You got to do something to keep the tempo going.
Yeah, man. I'll just throw plectrums at him. Keep up.
The funniest thing I ever saw that was the other way around. It was actually Joe's brother's band that he was in at the time, and their covers band, and it was this sort of opposite way around. They were doing a cover of Mr Crowley, and they had the whole like intro going on and everything, and then Chaz, their guitarist, good guitarist, but he's what everyone would call like a lovable idiot. Like he just does things wrong, but you can't help but love him. And something had gone wrong with his pedal board, so he'd done the big sort of synthy keyboard intro to Mr. Crowley, and he went to go hit the riff, and like nothing happened. There was just like nothing there, and we just stood there, and you just saw 2 drumsticks from Joe's brother James just sort of come over the top and smack Jazz in the head. Come on,
that's a great track, isn't it, Mr. Crowley? That's what I actually use to warm up with it when I'm backstage. Most of the guitar licks in that track I've nicked for other solos, so all this sort of Randy Rhoads stuff, which I just think is absolutely phenomenal. But a lot of them are kind of what you would actually find in sort of guitar magazines in terms of scales that you would do with. So a lot of it is like that. But I play along with that song still. I mean, I've been playing along with it for 20 odd years now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Randy Rhoads is just on another planet as
Oh,
far
yeah.
as I'm concerned. Really great.
It's funny, anyway. We all got songs that we would play in terms of warming up and making sure that we're in. For me, the two bass riffs that I always used to play before any gig was "Immigrant Song" and Eagle's "Life in the Fast Lane," because that was like trying to rub your stomach and pat your head at the same time. And if I knew if I got that one, I should be all right.
It's funny because I used to when I used to smoke a lot of weed, it would be a lot of Crows stuff because it was the tempos were always
Tempo
really
was
slow.
right.
Anything after the first album, you're like, okay, let's do a bit of Thorn in My Pride. Just have a bit of a nap before we go on as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm more, I don't do that stuff anymore. So it's more lively backstage now, doing actual proper warm ups. But I read an interview actually with Robert Plant where he's talking about how he doesn't do vocal warm ups.
I saw something about that
Yeah,
recently.
it cropped up on. I'll tell you what must have happened. I must have been chatting about Robert Plant, and then the Facebook algorithms
Yeah, heard you.
heard me and then forced this interview on me. But I do loads of warm ups before I go on, and that was, I've done that for years, and it's basically, particularly vocal warm ups. I do it because, I've been on the road for sort of 10 days, and you're not doing any care of your vocals, and you're smashing whiskey after you've played, and you're just getting completely battered. And then by like day 6 of the tour, you sound like Lemmy, and it's like my voice doesn't sound like Lemmy in an everyday situation. I should say, it doesn't sound like Lemmy in a good way. Like it
No.
sounds like a sort of comedic version of Lemmy. So I've learned to be a bit more careful about it, which I don't know. I don't know whether I prefer it actually. I kind of preferred it when I used to get smashed after gigs and it was more rock and roll, fall asleep in the hotel room and not quite remember how you got back to bed. But yeah, maybe I'll do that on the next tour, make it more rock and roll again. We'll see.
So yeah, see if you survive it anymore.
All cancelled after one gig. Sounds like Lemmy.
Let me win cancel after because of a hangover, mate.
That's true. Yeah, I've never cancelled. I've done a lot of gigs with hangovers. I was on the phone to Mike Ross just before we hooked up this evening, and we were talking about when we played a show in Germany, and he was talking about the set list, and I was like, honestly, I cannot remember. We turned up at this venue, and it was just free booze, like this really strong German beer. We were there at 2 in the afternoon, and we didn't play until about 11 o'clock at night. So you can imagine how. I remember getting on the stage and thinking. I remember looking down at the floor, thinking, "Where am I meant to stand?" And I looked to like my left, and there was Troy Redfern there, and then Mike was on my right, and I thought, "Well, this must be where I'm meant to stand." But the stage was relatively small, and it was like an extra hard level from the Crystal Maze. It was just like trying to survive that gig. That was probably one of the final shows I did where I was drinking, and then I stopped drinking. I think Mike probably thought, "What a prat." he was holding the whole thing together, and I was just mucking around drinking booze on stage. But rock and roll, innit?
Well, there you go. I know when I went out to Hamburg, I went to Hamburg just before lockdown kicked in. Went out there for mate's birthday and to go see Phil Campbell and Bastard Sounds Like, and we kept forgetting that the bars in Germany are open till 6.
Right.
So we were just like drinking and chatting, and then it was like, right, we're closing now. Like, yeah, okay. And then we'd walk out, and it was daylight, and you'd be going,
Man, this was all about, isn't it? I think as well because I bet the beers were a stronger percentage than you get here as
oh, yeah,
well.
it was nice. It was nice as well. I think is that like I said, we're in Hamburg, and we got in the day before the gig. Gig was on the Saturday. We sort of landed in Hamburg on the Friday, and there was a barmaid on at the hotel we were staying at, and she sees us all walking in line. She's like, "Oh, are you here for Phil Campbell?" And we're like, "Yeah, yeah, we've come over for that." She said, "Oh, there's this." She was a bit of a rocker as well. So she was like, "Oh, there's this bar called the Grot Bar. You've got to go down it." Blah blah blah. I'm like, "Okay, so where's that then?" So she starts describing where it is from the hotel. So we're like, "Okay, cool. Well, during the day we'll explore the city a little bit." It was around about Christmas times. The Christmas market was on, and we went had a look around there. Came back, had a few beers, and then went out again, sort of thing. And we were trying to find this bar that she was on about. And we get to sort of, everyone's on their phones trying to work out where the fuck it is. And we get them realize it's just in like right in the middle of the Reaper bar, and it's just right in the middle of the red light district. And it's like, oh, fuck. And like, you don't want to look like a tourist in the in the red light district because it's sort of asking to get mugged. So it was like, does anybody actually know where it is? And mate Mark's like, right, yeah, it's right down the end of this road. Right, I can see the sign, but it's right in the thick of the red light district. We're like, right, okay, right, hands onto your wallets, lads. Don't look at anyone and just fucking, run the gauntlet sort of thing. And we got into the grot bar, and it was a little tiny little basement bar, brilliant. Yeah, tiny little place. It was probably about 3 tables in the whole bar. It was fantastic. And we sat ourselves down like, and our mate Teak, he's not stupid, but he sometimes doesn't engage his brain before the words come out of his face. And we were having sort of classic chat, oh, Hamburg's a nice city, blah blah blah. It's been a good day so far. And Teak comes out with a line, yeah, everyone's really friendly. Did you see all those girls smiling and waving at us as we walked down the road? And we're like, Teak, I hate to break your innocence, mate, but they're prostitutes.
Well, you know what? I never have any issues when I go anywhere on tour about looking like a tourist, because I usually look like the guy that would mug you. So it's I've gotten away with it for quite a considerable amount of my life, that I look like the weird guy actually that nobody wants to go near. So there you go.
So what does the rest of the year and into 2023 sort of hold for you, mate?
Yeah, so we got the tour. I'm sort of plotting festivals, European dates for next year. And then, as I mentioned earlier on, going to America in April. I think it's April. But then, yeah, just recording as well, doing some more songwriting, working on a few tracks with Josiah. We're going back in the studio at the end of September, doing some more recording.
Nice.
But I got no pressure in terms of, like, when we started recording the Hammer Falls, I went in and it's like, this is a 10-track album I'm working on.
Yeah.
I don't know. This is just, I'm trying to go back to the way I worked on my first album, actually, which was more kind of, when it's ready, it'll be ready, without setting a deadline for it. And I've put out a lot of music, man, in the last 3 years. And, I've done 3 solo albums, and I did the RHR albums. I just, want to take some time over the next thing and decide really what I want to do with it. And so, I could tour the Hammer Falls for a year and a half, whatever, but I don't really want to do that. So there'll be new songs appearing at the live shows. But yeah, I think it's interesting, because this year's been quite a strange year in many ways, because I put out the Hammer Falls, which was a big project for me. But then pretty much straight after we finished that tour, that's when Laz and Felipe said they were leaving to work on their own projects, which, that was an upsetting period actually for a couple of weeks, because I'd worked with those guys for 4 years, and I'm very, very close with them. But then you just have to kind of start thinking about what you do next. And in some ways it was a way of freeing me up to write differently. And that's what I've done. I've written songs that, instead of writing for that band, the band that I've played in for 4 years, it's almost like this weird dynamic of, when I was starting to write again, like, I don't know who's going to be the drummer that plays on this record. I don't know who's going to play bass. So I've got this sort of weird freedom to kind of go where I want to go. It doesn't mean I've been writing jazz music or anything like that. It still just sounds like a cross between AC/DC and Led Zeppelin. But I think I've always been about songwriting, and I think I'll be doing a lot of that over the next 6 months, and we'll see where that leads me. And I've been doing some stuff with other artists as well, just doing some kind of studio work and doing some backing vocals for people and that kind of stuff. So it's all good.
Sounds like you've got a busy another year ahead, mate, as always.
Yeah, man. I never set out to make it busy, but I mean, the actual plan for this year was to release Hammer Falls, tour it, and then I got married in April. So the plan was to really just kind of have 6 months off, but I'm not very good at that. And I end up sort of thinking, well, I could do this, and then someone will ring me up and say, oh, can you pop down and do this studio session? I'm like, oh, okay. And then suddenly you're actually filling all your time with all this other stuff. But it's not necessarily stuff that is out there in the public domain. So it's I don't deal with sitting around at home very well.
Well, at the beginning of the interview, I'm going to play Days of Thunder because that'll be the then new single when I get to air it. But at the end of the interview, what song of yours would you like us to play, buddy?
Do you know what would be cool? Can you play "Love Is Going to Bring You Home" from the Boom Boom Brotherhood record?
Yeah, man, we can play that.
If it's, I don't know whether I don't know if it's available actually on streaming services.
I'm
I
sure
think it probably is.
I'm sure we can get it somewhere.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm up for that. Play something a bit different.
cool, man. Yeah, it'd be good to hear something like that. Actually, bit old school. The production on that is actually quite similar to the sort of Kevin Shirley production.
Okay.
It's quite interesting. But yeah.
Oh, dude, we'll do that. Well, thanks for your time as always, Joe, buddy. It's always great to chat to you, dude.
Yeah, man, it's been good. And as always, thanks for having us on and letting me talk absolute bollocks. I enjoy it, but there you go.
My
I'm
pleasure.
now about to go and watch Man United get utterly destroyed by Liverpool and then turn my phone off because Wes will be just sending me these fucking there are always voicemail messages on Facebook where he's gloating. So I'm going to maybe switch my phone off for an hour and a half and wait for the carnage to unfold without chatting to him.
Sounds like a plan, mate.
Cool, man. All right, Lee.
If I don't speak to you before, I don't see you before, I'll see you in Norwich, I guess.
All right, dude. See you soon, mate.
Take care, pal.